Hey guys, this is Zlewikk and welcome back to another video about an unannounced game called Project Ceasar that we all know it is EU5. Today we'll be talking much deeper about POPs, the migration, assimilation, conversion, satisfaction and everything else that we already know about it. I might be talking a bit more funny today and slower because I had my wisdom tooth extraction yesterday. It's a bit hurting when I'm talking, so please bear with me in today's episode. So the first thing that Johan is sharing is the general tooltip for POPs, which he's mentioned that it's coming from an old game that he made a decade or two ago. I actually do not recognize it. Is it from Victoria 2? In general, guys, I'm not a big fan of this, and yeah, you know, I'm not a big fan of UI of EU5 in general so far. But I really can't, Mr. Paradox, that you guys will make sure that it is all made much better. But yeah, in general, Johan is explaining that each POP is treated as a person from a certain estate, certain religion, certain culture, and then over here you can see that it can be also split between different locations. It's country, then we've got states, then we've got provinces. So first of all, there's a population capacity, meaning that if your location has more population than its capacity, it is more likely that this population is gonna start decreasing quickly. In general, this capacity is gonna depend on vegetation, topographic, climate, but also buildings and development of the province itself. And as said here, if you're above your capacity, your migration attraction is gonna decrease, same as the population growth, so you want to keep it higher than actual population. What's also important, there are generally no restriction on how many peasants, slaves and tribesmen you're having, so they states from the lower class, but you do have big limits on the amount of the upper class, as it's gonna be limited much by your infrastructure and the type of the POP itself. And so Johan is also reminding that estates can build their own buildings, so if they see that, let's say burghers, I think that there's not much capacity for them, they will increase it themselves with the buildings to increase their power in general. There are reasons why you want upper class POPs and not just always create an egalitarian all-peasant society. And this is when the capital economy developing during this era depends heavily on burghers, so you want to have a fair amount of those. You also want clergy of your national religion, as they will help with stability, while nobles will help with their proper culture, with your diplomacy and warfare. And you see here as an example maximum capacity of burghers in Kalmar. It is summoned for the fact that this is a town. From them, 3 buildings that are impacting this, and as you see, actually if you'll be having an active levies, remind you, levies are coming from estates, they are also gonna decrease the capacity of the certain locations. How about promotion and demotion of the POPs? The most general rule is that promotion works very slowly, while demotion is much faster. So if there can be more POPs of a certain social class, POPs will promote to become that specific class over time. So it is also important to have the capacity itself, so the lower class can become higher class. Where there will be a base value, promoting to some classes like nobles will just be a fraction of that each month. If you wish to speed this up with your country, you can use a cabinet member to increase it. But there are also a couple of other factors that impact this. I assume there will be loss, amount of devastation in a specific location, or lack of control. So that's another reason to have a big control of the location. Reminder, it's kind of autonomy how much you're controlling this province. The higher control or the lower lack of control, obviously the faster promotion will be. So you see here that monthly promotion in Kalmar is base 10 of POPs, but then it's impacted by literacy of the peasants, your control, your stability, and the assume that is a law. And based on this, actual 16 peasants a month will be promoted in Kalmar. How about the growth? Interestingly, only tribesmen and peasants are organically growing by their own, while all of the POP types can die off from a negative growth. So increasing is only peasants and tribesmen, decreasing everyone. So as you see, overpopulation, lack of food, war exhaustion, devastation have a significant negative impact on the growth, while having access to free land and lots of food increases the growth. Not to forget, population can die directly from diseases like Black Death and warfare as well. So from what I'm understanding, you get tribesmen and peasants from the growth, but if you want to get the other estates like clergy, nobility and barriers, they are coming from promotion. Obviously there will be assimilation, so how the pops will be converting to your main culture, so the primary culture of the country, and this will also of course depend on a lot of stuff, like again, control is the key factor here, but also your societal values, buildings, and using the cabinet to speed this up. In this example, see the base is 10, but because of this minuses, actually only 3 pops a month are assimilating. Conversion is working very similar to assimilation, but it's around religion. But here the main difference is that by default it is just slower, because you do not have base amount of the conversion. So for example, in this case, while you have 4 low control while having a couple of nice bonuses, you still in the end have 3% of monthly conversion, which in this case is 0 pops a month. And again, it can be impacted by pretty much the same stuff that we mentioned for assimilation. Something really interesting to control your country is gonna be migration, so how pops are moving between your locations. And so there are several ways for pops to migrate. Multiple ones regarding the colonization aspect of the game will be talked about in later Tinto Talks. But there's also content that does migration, where events, disasters or other scripted content will set up specific migration from one place to another. However, there will be some base natural migration besides that. So in general, the rule is that the pops will move away from the location where they have a negative migration attraction, and they'll move to a province location with a high migration attraction in general. And this is actually very important within the same market. That's why you might want to have your own market controlling, or one market controlling all of the provinces, or you might use a market to manage the migration a little bit. Upper class pops are usually allowed to migrate, while not many countries allow their peasants to move freely. So in general, in many countries the migration will be really only available for a fraction of your population without peasants. So see, there's a base value for the migration. Again, a few factors impact this, where important factor is definitely a price of the raw materials, development on the province, available free land, and the other mechanics. See, one of them being just constructing buildings in lowly populated locations to attract pops there, because the development will increase with the more buildings. How about literacy? Each pop will also have their own calculation for this, which is again impacted by the buildings, advances, which I assume are the technologies, laws, and other stuff. The average literacy of a country has an impact on the research speed of that country, and the literacy of a pop has some impact on its satisfaction. However, there's also an immediate impact on the location of the average literacy of all the social class. Amongst other things, the average literacy of the nobles in the location has an impact on how quickly control can increase there, so that's very important. And the average literacy of slaves in the location increases their honors, because they're more aware that they shouldn't be slaves. So you see an example of Swedish burghers in Kalmar, where their maximum literacy is 13%. Due to being innovative, so that's probably one of the advances. Written alphabet and religious teachings. These are either lows probably, or the advances. Average literacy of 30% of burghers in Kalmar gives bigger development increase and burghers trade capacity. So probably depending on the estate type, this impact of the literacy will be different. In case of the burghers, it just makes you richer over time. Then we've got population needs, and this is where the trade goods are coming into clutch, because the population itself will be having a lot of needs for specific goods. And you see there's an example of Swedish burghers in Visby that require all of this stuff, but obviously they, for example, need a lot of beer, wine, mostly the daily living stuff. And you see that at the top, this is also really good, that at the top it also tells you, okay, they have access to 91% of their needs, so this is not bad. What's important, the need of a pop will depend on their location. So for example, if it's up north, they'll more need like food, on the religion. So for example, Jains will hateful on probably laws, the type of the estates, and of course the other stuff that are related to this specific pops. It's actually really in-depth mechanic. How about satisfaction of the population? Well, one of the things that impacts it a lot are the goods that we just discussed. First of all, if I have access to goods that I need, and second of all, are they cheap? Sounds like daily life, right? What's also interesting, the literacy is also gonna impact how mad I am by the high prices. So the more literate I am, the more mad I will be that the prices are higher than I expect. Satisfaction also depends heavily on their status of their culture in the country, the religion they belong to, and how satisfied the estate in general is. There are other ways to make pops more satisfied, like certain buildings or good old method of stationing armies. Pops with low satisfaction will join and start supporting a rebel faction. So you see here satisfaction of the Swedish peasants is 75%, and you see a couple of things that are impacting it, like friendly armies, you see there's a part of the calculation, and you see lacking beer is making them mad. Are you surprised? But yeah, I see if satisfaction is below 17%, they will join a rebel, and they will become loyal again when it hits 30%. So it's not like, oh, I'm above 17%, again the rebel will stop. No, you have to get much higher. Even though pops may not be upset enough to rebel, their satisfaction has other impacts, as the average satisfaction of pops in a location has an impact on prosperity and control. So you see average satisfaction in Kalmar, it is, I think, from all of the pops. Yeah, it's from Swedish nobles, Swedish clerics, burghers and peasants with the percentages, and the impact on the prosperity, maximum control, and the institution growth. But yeah, this is it for today's topic of the pops themselves. Let me know what you think, guys. I know that there's out of critics that, oh, this is too much like Victoria 3, but I think it's actually much different than Victoria 3 and simplified enough to be cool for EU5, but I know that a lot of you disagree. Feel free to share that feedback in the comment section just without insulting anyone. And right now I'll jump into the comment section of the forum to see what the others are thinking and what Johan is saying in that section. Is the migration between countries, or there is only internal migration within a market? Yes, and it seems to be a good solution because of course there was migration between the countries within that timeline, and trade is very usually enhancing the migration, especially of the burghers. Is there a max capacity of any one location can reach with buildings, or is it theoretically limitless? In theory limitless, or like 64-bit limitless, so limitless. Oh, somebody said that they love the pop ledger, and Johan is saying so do I. I can get almost all of info there. Yeah, maybe I'll get used to that, I guess. Let me know what you guys think about that ledger. Very interesting, but when you said that only peasants grow organically, what does that mean? Nobles do not have children, or they have like immortal god emperors? Abstracted away, they got replacement kids, 2 kids for only each couple. Yeah, so they're not decreasing naturally. They just stay on the same level, and unless they get like, you know, negative attraction, they die to diseases or war. And they're just having a replacement that Europe is lacking right now, for example, with 2 kids per couple. You ask for Norse pops? You got them! All 38 of them! Enjoy! Might be more when we revise the map with all. It's kinda a placeholder at the moment for me. Let's take a look at this again. Oh yeah, there it is, Norse paganism. 0.01%, 38 pops. Loving the goods icons. Yeah, I think why I don't like the UI, the goods icons looked are pretty solid. If there is no base conversion unless enforced by cabinet in a single province, how difficult it is going to be converted colonies in Americas or Africa? There are ways for them, yes. Beer, liquor and wine? Yes, all of them are needed for a good life. Can one nation expel minorities or increase their immigration desire? Just migration desire? And can another nation become a free haven and get increased migration attraction from expelled pops? Kind of like France expelling the Huguenots and the Dutch Republic accepting them. Inside the market, yes, but there are other ways that pops will move in a country. A confirmation that assimilation of the cultures is only to the primary culture, not like in EU4 where you could convert it to, you know, the other cultures within your country. Please get rid of tribe and tribesman denomination. Those are the derogatory terms used by the enlightened Europeans to describe the savage leaders and there are peoples from Africa and Asia that obviously cannot be described as kings and bears. That would be insulting to our great, good and advanced rulers to be put in equal as foot as them. Why? We use that most inside Europe. Is there a plant mechanic of deforestation or forestation in relation to free land and population growth? Depending on map code technology, yes, but I would love to have it. Since assimilation rate is linear, x per month, but population growth is exponential, y% per month, this creates an organic situation where regional minorities generally don't get assimilated away, unless the provinces are severely depopulated by something that totally isn't your fault. In which case assimilation plus migration, since there's so much free land, takes over. Very cool. That's the idea. Also very happy to see that having a written alphabet is a mechanic. It's a basic technology that most have, but not all. Thus being demoted lower satisfaction. I don't think nobles would be happy with being bumped down to peasants. Yeah, but not really. One angry pope amongst 25,000 peasants is just one angry peasant nobody gives a fuck about. Is there a way to keep popes out of migrating to our country? You can block some estates from migrating, but it's primarily inside your market. So you could technically, for example, only try shaping your market with the different mechanics to be within your country and not share it with the other countries. That's about the Norse. Don't worry, someone will find a way to get these 38 brave Norse people to become the majority religion. Knowing our player base, I expect to see Norse region world conquers by 1355 threat eventually. Shots fired at Lambda. Can you selectively approve of religions and cultures so they aren't assimilated? Yes, on cultures, so you can decide which cultures are not being assimilated. Will accepting cultures and general mechanic work like in Imperator? No, but also not like in EU4. Can I just ignore it and it will sort itself out in the background, or do I have to put up with Victoria vibes in not EU5? For most, it's more in the background, but of course can impact it with your laws, cabinet and building. So there's some stuff that you will be able to do, but you can partly automate it, especially buildings that are also being built by the states. But yeah, this is it for today's Dev Diary. The last few minutes I want to spend on the last week's Tinto maps around the British Isles. Let's jump into it. But yeah, at the end, let's take a quick look at the British Isles. So the Tinto maps from the last Friday. As you see, it's actually revealed that the game is Project Ceasar, if you're wondering what is said here. But yeah, let's take a look. British Isles. First of all, you're seeing the climate map mode, which is, as you see, majority of it is pretty much oceanic, and a bit of continental in central north and Scotland itself. Just keep in mind, guys, again, if you have historical sources that prove that these are wrong, share that with them in the forum, because they will take that into account to make adjustments. Topography wise, as you see, the isles are dominated by the green and pleasant flatlands that are easy to develop in EU4. The periphery is punctuated by rocky mountains and craggy highlands. We'd like to add some more impassable locations in northern England and the Scottish borders to make maneuvers a little more interesting and strategic, but would like suggestions from people more familiar with the pennines. Vegetation, as you see, it's actually out of farmlands and grasslands. The Great Moors, bogs and fens are represented by the sparse type of the vegetation, and there's still plenty of woods and forests, especially in the north. The raw goods situation aims to reflect the economic situation reality of medieval Britain. Shepherding was common every corner of the islands. A lot of the wool produced was sold to the industrial hub of the Low Countries to be manufactured into cloth, which just sold back to British markets. Here you see there's plenty of wool. The farther northwest we go, the less fertile terrain, as such the greater reliance on pastoral farming such as livestock over wet. The western hills and valleys also expose a greater number of mineral delights, including the historic standard mines of the Devon and Cornwall. Market-wise, you see we've got two of them. There's a London market and Dublin market, and it is more or less similar to what we have in EU4 with the English Channel and the North Sea, but obviously English Channel is it's much bigger in EU4 because it has lowlands and Normandy, while North Sea has Norway. But we all know from the previous Dev Diaries how the markets are going to work. They're going to be dynamic. So that is only the starting situation. And as the situation, the political situation and economic situation changes there, also the markets will change. Here is the culture map mode. We've got English, Welsh, Cornish, Irish, Highland and Scots. And there's a big explanation on why they did go with this kind of a split. First of all, decision that they decided to go with the monolithic English culture without splitting that into more of the cultures, and there's the reasoning here. Then a bit of explanation about the split between the Scots and the Highlanders. You see that besides Irish, there's actual Anglo-Irish culture here down south on the island, and this is representing the spectrum from Cambro-Norman knights to the so-called Old English settlers that live in great numbers of southeastern trading towns from Dublin to Cork, as well as smaller numbers in frontier outposts. There's no screenshot of the religious map because it's simply all Catholic, with some Jewish minorities that we've seen in the previous maps. Other than that, it's all Catholic, but not for long. John Wycliffe entered the chat, so there might be some changes in the religion very early into the game. Which, if you Google his name into the internet, you'll see that he was already alive at the start of EU5, but he was just very young, and he was a big reformer of the Christian church. At least he tried to reform it. Interestingly, during his life, he wasn't called a heretic, and after he died in 1384, a couple of decades later, actually, there were some laws introduced that were calling his work a heresy. By 1415, his writings were banned. But yeah, then we've got the areas map mode, provinces map mode, which is again very similar to EU4. I think it might be even more provinces here than in EU4, and locations. God damn, there's just so many of them. Then finally, government types. So you see it's mostly monarchies, but a big chunk of Ireland are steer tribes. While the countries map mode is, oh my god, there's a huge explanation of each of the country, and the most important one to mention here is that Scotland is in a civil war. That's why I've got a split between Scotland and Balliol reforms. But yeah, if you're interested in knowing much more of the backgrounds behind this map mode, and I love that they started explaining it in the text, take a look at the dev diary yourself. Got dynasties, population, 5 million people living in England. By location, so see, for example, like London has like 80,000 only, while these cities around here have over 100k. But it's a very simple explanation. I saw some comments that it is mainly because the cities were a center of trade for England, and they were really devastated by the Black Death just a bit later. Well yeah, next week we'll see the map of Anatolia, but for today, thank you so much for coming. If you did enjoy this Team Talks video, let me know by liking this video, and of course subscribe to the channel to get notified about the future content.